Hello there. It's been stormy in St. Louis today, off and on. And you know what? I guess that reflects the mood that I'm in today. But grumpy or not, I'm happy to be with you and I welcome you to the Bernie Show presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. So you may be wondering why I'm grumpy, and I'm going to explain. And the thing that you'll find out is my grumpiness is probably your grumpiness. I think we have something totally in common here when we think about what Cardinals baseball has become. So let's start throwing this around a little bit. I'll try to pull myself together. So you may be wondering, why is Bernard J. Miklasz Jr. so grouchy today? Well, it's nothing that anything that you did. It doesn't have anything to do with Mrs. Bernie or the neighbors or my jobs or the coffee going cold on my desk. Doesn't have anything to do with the 5 cats we have running around demanding treats all the time. That's why we live. That's why we exist, human beings, to make sure cats have all their treats, right? No, I actually like that part. Yeah, and I'm a little grumpy when the alarm goes off at 5:15 a.m. each weekday, but that's nothing. The thing that makes me grumpy is that it takes me so long to get my job done, get my work done. I still have the fastball, but I don't know that I can throw it as hard, right? It's funny how things go. With me, it's it isn't a matter of not being able to do the job at a level that I want as far as writing and even this, right? It just takes longer than it used to get it done. But you can see I'm smiling, so I can't be that grumpy, right? I have a wonderful life, and I'm happy and thankful for my work, and to still have a market for my work, and still be able to do at least 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week, something that I truly cherish. But damn it, I miss the St. Louis Cardinals, and I need to ventilate my frustration over how much has changed with baseball in St. Louis. And I'm not one of these people that's just like clinging to the past in a way that's just kind of, ridiculous, because we all know nothing lasts forever. Nothing great lasts forever. And I'm a mature adult. I realize that. But with the Cardinals, the disintegration of the baseball product, it didn't have to happen. It could have been prevented. And that's what makes it different. We can say, well, nothing lasts forever, but it didn't have to be this way. And that's why I'm so disappointed and pretty salty. The St. Louis Cardinals, and I'll speed up here. The St. Louis, I'm sort of in a reflective mood today. You'll find out why as we go along. St. Louis Cardinals baseball has been a big part of my life since I had the good fortune of moving here in 1985 and then moving back in 1988. I got attached to the Cardinals just in time to see them win the National League pennants in 85 and 87. I used to help out the late great Rick Hummel on the Cardinals beat a little bit before football season started. That was one of my side jobs, to help the commish out at the ballpark. And though there was a lull after those two pennants, the last two pennants in 85, 87, the Cards, came out of that lull and they rose to prominence again when a group led by Bill DeWitt Jr. purchased the franchise before the 1996 season. And as the lead sports columnist for the Post-Dispatch for 27 years uninterrupted, I had a bird's eye view of some tremendous, just absolutely joyous and tremendous St. Louis baseball over the decades. I think about the spring trainings in Florida, the hot summers in the city, the cooling off, the autumn coming in, the breeze, the falling of the leaves, the sea of red, the excitement of October baseball, having memories of like, oh my gosh, the memories standing next to Tony La Russa in Jupiter the day that a young rookie named Albert Pujols took batting practice for the first time in 2001 in camp. And I've told the story before. La Russa's watching this and seeing Pujols hit the ball to the moon, every single one. And TLR was making like grunting noises. And he was just like going, "Urgh, urgh," and just, and he walked away. He said, if I keep watching this, I'm going to have to put him on a team. And I don't think that's fair to him. Oh, yeah, they put him on the team. The rest is history. Anyway, I got a million wonderful memories like that. Listen, the seasons changed, and I'm talking about, during those many great years of superb Cardinals baseball. The actual seasons of the year changed. I'm talking about spring, summer, fall, and winter. But Cardinal seasons didn't change all that much at all, really. Oh, of course there were some downer seasons. I mean, you're not going to win. You're not going to like contend for the World Series every year. And so, like the real weather, Cardinals endured some bad weather of their own from time to time, but they always found a way to get it fixed, always kind of found a way to get flight and then resume flying above the rest of the National League. Long time. And goodness, what a blessing it was to watch this. Someone who loves baseball, someone who grew up in Baltimore, as many of you know, and I watched those as a fan, as a kid with my dad, and then as a teenager, to watch that Orioles dynasty led by, Earl Weaver and Jim Palmer and Brooks Robinson and Frank Robinson and, on and on and on. I was privileged in my life as a fan, and more so than a sports writer, to cover two extraordinary eras of baseball in Baltimore, then St. Louis. So I take this stuff pretty seriously, right? And I think that most of you, especially of a certain age, will agree with the sentiments that I'm talking about here. Weren't we all so very fortunate to witness one of the great eras of Cardinals baseball? I know I feel that way, even though it was a job. My goodness, baseball seasons in St. Louis, a lot of work, a lot of travel. It was a job, but don't tell the Post-Dispatch this. I probably would have done it for $300 a week. Well, maybe not that, maybe a little more than that, but you get my point. Listen, I was in press boxes all over North America, writing columns, covering a franchise that won 4 National League pennants and 2 World Series from 2004 through 2013. I was covering the McGuire Sosa thing in '98 and going to all these towns that never drew anymore, had low crowds every time. As far as the regular games, McGuire would come to town. They'd be lined up outside of stadiums where, normally there'd be, 12, 15,000 in the ballpark for the game. There would be 40,000 in the ballpark just to watch batting practice. I mean, if I get started on this, I mean, this video would last 5 hours because I got a million memories, and they're all great, and they're all really sweet as far as what they meant to me, especially looking back. So the Cardinals won the 4 National League pennants and 2 World Series from 2004 through 2013, but they actually started winning under DeWitt, Jocketty, and La Russa, beginning around 2000. 1996. But then the first year they win the division title under TLR, and they get to the NLCS and they go 7 games. They lose to Atlanta. That was the first year of the DeWitt, Jocketty, La Russa alliance. And I'm going to talk more about that here in a minute. But it really didn't end there. When, I talk about the World Series and the pennants, the last pennant was 2013, but it did not end there. The 2015 Cardinals won 100 games. The 2019, 2020, 21, and 2022 teams made the playoffs, but those playoffs teams, as you know, didn't do so well during the 4 postseasons, winning only 4 of 15 games. So I'm thinking, well, it's just a phase. It's just a phase. That's what I thought. Turned out to be wrong. The Cardinals, I just assumed, because winning was a way of life with St. Louis baseball, and you accepted the fact that you're going to have a bad couple seasons here and there. But hey, surely the Cardinals would jump back into more of those precious October opportunities and make a deep postseason run. Several of them, many of them, just as they used to, just as they always have been doing. Really going back to Whitey Herzog, but then after that, the lull before DeWitt and Jocketty and Russa just picked this whole thing back up again. There was no reason to assume the worst, to be disappointed by a bad season. Yeah, but there was no reason to make it anything more than that. Because there were so many reasons to believe in St. Louis baseball's staying power. Start with the fans. I mean, start with you. Start with the dynamic TV ratings and the dynamic radio ratings, and just the fact they're selling more than 3 million tickets each season in a mid-sized market for the longest period of time. The Cardinals ranking a lot of years second only to the Dodgers in home attendance as far as tickets sold, and very rarely were they any worse than the top four. So you just assume this party would go on, this baseball festival would go on deep into the future. Probably naive, but let me turn back the clock a little bit. From 2000 through 2015, the Cardinals had the best regular season winning percentage in the National League, and only the Yankees on the other league had more. From 2000 through 2015, the Cardinals competed in more postseason games than any team in the majors, 125. And I think I was at every one of them, 125. And they won 65 postseason games over those 16 seasons. That was more than any team in the majors. And I always love to mention this because it gives me pleasure. It really does. Because there was nothing like being at Busch Stadium, the former Busch Stadium or the current Busch Stadium. There's nothing like being there in October, the Sea of Red. Postseason baseball, high stakes, so much drama, so many incredible things, right? And some heartbreak from time to time too, because that's how it works. Cardinals fans were treated to more postseason home games than any fan base in the National League. And the only other team that had as many, it was exactly the same as the Cardinals or the New York Yankees from 2000 through 2015. The Cardinals had, 60 home games, I think, postseason games. The number doesn't matter, except that I know that it was the most home games any fan base had in terms of postseason baseball here in St. Louis from 2000 through 2015. So the most postseason games of any home ballpark in the majors, the most postseason wins at home, any ballpark in the majors, man. And when the Cardinals won those two World Series, they clinched both of those World Series at home. And they did so rather dramatically, especially 2011. There was some drama in 2006 as well. Anthony Reyes, this happened in Detroit, but Anthony Reyes, they started him because they had no one else who could start. After a lengthy NLCS, Anthony Reyes out-pitching Justin Verlander in Game 1 of the World Series in Detroit. And the Tigers never really recovered. There I go again. Too many memories. This will be a 5-hour video. No, I don't want it to be. You don't want it to be. We can do a memories video any other time. But anyway, the good times kept rolling and rolling and rolling. And how about all the leaders and the stars? And I'm going to go back a little bit before the DeWitt era, so to speak. I'm so great. What a lucky guy I am. Somebody who loves baseball as much as I do. Had to have here in St. Louis, had extensive baseball conversations, so many, more than I can count, with Whitey Herzog. And I'm sort of doing chronological order. Red Shandy's, Whitey Herzog, Joe Torre, George Kessel, Walt Jocketty, Tony La Russa, Dave Duncan, on and on and on and on. And, TLR, I don't have to tell you all, but TLR and Dave Duncan led the way for 16 seasons, and La Russa became the winningest manager in the history of an incredibly successful franchise. Jocketty put it all together. He was beloved by his colleagues. They trusted him. They respected him. So he always had an open door or an open line to talk trades. And the fact that he was so beloved within the industry helped him build the Cardinals into what they were. If they would have had any kind of other general manager, he might have been a smart guy and all that, but he didn't have the people skills. He didn't command the respect and the affection that Walt Jocketty did. I don't know that it would have been as great. We'll never know. And I didn't want to know because Walt Jocketty was superb at what he did. So the Cardinals, Jocketty was so good at what he put together. Um, the Cardinals kept winning and winning and winning, after he got sacked. I told you the other day, I think I did, the 2011 team that won the World Series still had 12 players that were brought into St. Louis to the Cardinals by Jocketty. What about all the stars? And again, I could sit here for, an hour. I have to read names. I don't want to do that. And please forgive me if I left anybody off. And I'm not trying to slight any players, but Pujols, Molina, Edmonds, McGuire, Renteria, Wainwright, Chris Carpenter, Matt Morris, Jason Isringhausen, Ozzie Smith in 96 after a long absence from the postseason. La Russa's first year, Jocketty's second year. 1996, Ozzie Smith and Willie McGee both got to play postseason baseball again in St. Louis, and they got to go all the way to the Game 7 of the NLCS. Let's continue. The star power. It's not a complete list, but it's an amazing list. Ray Lankford, Matt Holliday, Larry Walker, David Freese. Listen, I don't want to hear anything about Freese being honored even by me here. 2011, okay? That's all that matters. He was the biggest baseball star on the planet for that entire postseason. And that's the kind of star that hangs there forever, right? So anyway, Freese, David Eckstein, Ray Lankford, Carlos Beltran, Lance Berkman, Will Clark, Fernando Vena. I mean, on and on and on and on and on. My friend Trevor Rosenthal, some of the later day guys coming, although I think John Mozeliak, I think Jeff Luhnow drafted him. But that, let's move on. You have Skip Schumacher, John Jay, all those guys that helped build depth on those great Cardinals teams. They were all Jocketty guys. Yet, we had MVPs, we had Gold Glove winners, we had Cy Young winner, we had Wainwright and Chris Carpenter. And I think I mentioned them. Yeah, I did. Wainwright, Carpenter, Morris, Isringhausen. Matty Moe was getting Cy Young votes. Carpenter he won the Cy Young, and he finished second one time, third another time. Wainwright had, I think 3 times he finished second and 3 times he finished third, or it might have been 2 times second, 2 times third. Please forgive me. I don't have notes on everything in my fingertips, even though I put some notes on my screen. And Waino, even at an advanced age, baseball-wise, got some Cy Young votes in 2023. So it was just a marvelous time, just an incredible time. And we could even talk about, Jack Buck and Mike Shannon and those guys in the twilight of their careers, but just as beloved and just a luminous presence as much as they'd always been, and the Cardinals were just an extraordinary operation from top to bottom. And, and how fortunate, in my opinion, after Mr. Buck passed away, that legacy continued. I mean, John Rooney has just done an exceptional job as the radio voice of the Cardinals for a long time. And every time I listen to a game or even part of a game and I hear Rooney's voice, it just makes me really happy. And that's how you know a guy's really great at what he does. So when I return, I'm going to explain why I am and I am being sincere by this. I've been sad for a couple of days, and I'm completely genuine about this. I told my wife this morning. She said, "Is everything okay with you today?" And I said, I don't know, just one of those things, just kind of sad. It was sad last night. I was thinking about a lot of this stuff, and I was sad. And, I take this stuff to heart. I'm a passionate guy. Sometimes the passion overflows and I get too angry, or I almost care too much. Right. But she said, "Are you sure you're okay?" I say, "Yeah, just a little, just a little down. I'll be okay." And I am okay. But I just felt like I had to do this video and talk to you about it because I know a lot of you will be able to relate to it. So I'm going to explain this in a minute, but I ask for your patience and your support as I talk to you about DraftKings that is presenting the Bernie Show, and we're so great to have them aboard. And I'm a fan of what DraftKings does with their fantasy, their fantasy app and things like that. Baseball season's in the final days of April. We're about 1 month in. It's time for you to step up and, get to the plate. Take your big swings with DraftKings Pick 6. Think of DraftKings Pick 6 as your fastball right down the middle. It's the easiest way, the fastest way to go deep for a shot at a big cash win. I like to explain this to you. Give a little more detail. You select 2 more players and you choose if they're going to have more or less of a particular stat. And those stats are on the DraftKings app every day. Like, for example, if it's a Cardinal or any other player, let's say Nolan Gorman. Well, you'll see like a 0.5 next to his name. What that means is if he hits a homer and you bet that he's going to hit a homer with your fantasy pick, you win. If you say, no, he's not going to hit a home run tonight. Well, if he doesn't, that means it's under 0.5 because there's nothing. And that means you win too if you went that way. So you have the chance to make the right call and you can make the decision on what you think players do. I do a little homework before I make my decision, but you should approach it in your own way. Pick 6 is available in most states, including California, Texas, Georgia, Missouri, and more. Cash in on your baseball knowledge. The opportunity is there. New players get $50 in Pick 6 credits instantly on just a $5 entry. So download the DraftKings easy-to-use app. It's a fun-to-use app. And use the code STL Sports. That's important. Use that code STL Sports for new customers to play $5 and get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
And I thank you for your time as I try to tell you all about my friends at DraftKings. All right, let's return to the source of my blue mood over the Cardinals. And here's the deal. I think everything really hit home hard. It's kind of like this whole Cardinals experience back when things were so great for the longest time, and now realizing that those times are gone. And what kind of hit home and rocked me, as it rocked a lot of you, was the news on Saturday morning. And I sat there in my chair downstairs and I couldn't say a word because Walt Jocketty had passed away at age 74. Now, in addition to really, really respecting and liking Walt Jocketty as a person, a class act. Oh, we had a couple little squabbles, but so what? That's part of the game. And we would laugh about it later. But this man, this wonderful man, and all he did for St. Louis baseball and all he did for the fans, it just breaks my heart to know that he spent more than a year in the hospital fighting hard to stay alive, beating the odds for a long time after undergoing a lung transplant. Walt gave it everything, and then he gave it more and more and fought harder and fought harder and fought harder and harder and harder. See, having a hard time getting my words out, but he just couldn't prevail. And, that's life, unfortunately. You don't always get what you deserve. And it's also heartbreaking that the Cardinals, I love the fact they're putting him in, and I lobbied for that. The Cardinals are indeed putting Walt Jocketty into the Franchise Hall of Fame in September, and they had called to let him know. They're not doing this after he passed away, but they called to let him know. And I'll tell you more about that in a minute, but it's just so heartbreaking that he actually can't be there to put on the red jacket and stand with all the other Cardinals greats. And I'm sure a lot of players, his former players, would have come back. And it would have just been a huge celebration of Walt Jocketty. And he could bask in the acclaim and the love that he so richly deserves, right? According to Derek Gould of the Post-Dispatch, earlier this year, the Cardinals indeed let Walt Jocketty know that he'd been chosen for induction. And I made some follow-up calls on this, found out, the news made Walt Jocketty so happy so happy. And this is a time he's fighting for his life, right? And it had to be a grim existence. You're in the hospital for more than a year. Are you kidding me? But he's battling and battling, and then boom, he gets this great news. And he was smiling, he was upbeat, he was energized, he was thrilled, and he was so fired up. He started writing his acceptance speech. Now, I don't know if he finished it. I don't know if he's close to finishing. I'm going to try to find out more when it's appropriate to find out more. I'm certainly not going to bother the Jocketty family. But I hope he got that thing done. And I hope, I don't know whether it would be his son Joey or Tony La Russa. It's the Jocketty family's call. But to be able to read Walt's words on September 6th, that ceremony, Walt's words that he wrote while fighting for his life in a hospital in Arizona, that would be incredibly powerful stuff. So let's just hope that there's some of that. Some of his thoughts, even if he didn't finish the speech, some of his thoughts upon hearing that he is a Cardinals Hall of Famer. Because as far as I'm concerned, as soon as the Cardinals call you and let you know, you're in. It's just a matter of like, well, you got to plan the ceremony now. So the news made him really happy, and that's comforting. But man, I'm mourning the loss of Walt Jocketty, because anybody would if you had, a long-time association with someone and you appreciated him, respected him, admired him, and also appreciated the fact that my job was more delightful and my job was more exciting because of Walt Jocketty and what he was able to do to build the Cardinals and keep them winning and winning and winning. He and La Russa, and yes, Bill DeWitt. On a lesser level, though, much lesser level, because there's nothing like the news of his death. I have not blown all of my circuitry up here. I have not lost all of my perspective. So there's losing Walt Jocketty, the human being, but I'm sad thinking about the loss of what he represented in terms of baseball in one of the truly great and remarkable eras of Cardinals history. I mean, Walt Jocketty drafted Pujols and Molina. He drafted Matt Morris. He hired La Russa and Duncan. And La Russa had some other options, but he wanted to work with Walt because they were partners to an extent. Walt was running the minor leagues in Oakland, and then La Russa came in to manage the A's. Those guys grew a great relationship with a lot of trust. So Walt is the number one reason why La Russa and Duncan set up shop in St. Louis. And they altered the trajectory of this franchise that had been going the wrong way for too long. Walt traded for Jim Edmonds. He traded for Scott Rowland. He traded for Adam Wainwright. He traded for Edgar Renteria. He traded for Larry Walker. This was one of his minor deals because it was only, for a few months, but he traded for Will Clark. And my gosh, was that fun. And he traded for so many others. I don't really have the time, unless I want to sit here all day, to go over every name. What about free agent signings? He signed Chris Carpenter. He signed Jeff Suppan. They don't win the 2006 World Series without Jeff Suppan. They don't get to the 2004 World Series without Jeff Suppan. He signed David Eckstein, who was the MVP of the 2006 World Series. He signed one of the great cult favorite players in modern Cardinals history. He signed So Taguchi. My goodness. And before DeWitt purchased the team and empowered the Jocketty to start acquiring talent, be aggressive, do what you got to do. Wouldn't that be nice if those days returned? But anyway, I digress. DeWitt, to his credit, he empowered Jocketty and he said, listen, we gotta get these fans excited about something. We got to get them back here at Busch Stadium, and we want to win. Return the Cardinals to what they were. So before the DeWitt and Jocketty working relationship began in 1996, the Cardinals had ranked 20th among the 28 teams in the majors at that time. There were only 28. They ranked 20th out of 28 in winning percentage from 1988 through 1995. And they hadn't made the playoffs since 1987. Yeah, the Cardinals were still an illustrious, historically prestigious franchise, but the team on the field, gradually became irrelevant. The team on the field, pretty much a loser, right? And that was that gap seemed to go on forever, even though looking back on it, well, it was, 1987, and then you get back to the playoffs until 96. Yeah, that's a pretty long time. And here's the thing, the DeWitt, Jocketty, La Russa alignment was pretty much perfect. All three of them closely worked together. They coordinated the plans. The way it would work, La Russa would talk to Jocketty about what he thinks or he thought the Cardinals should do. This is what La Russa would recommend. And then Jocketty would talk to DeWitt about it. And then they all would get together and talk about it some more. And then they would just plot a plan of action. And sometimes they didn't agree, but it didn't matter because they all had the Cardinals' best interest at heart. And you're not going to agree 100% of the time, but the respect was always there. And the relationship was so incredibly strong. The Cardinals were fully aligned, and that lasted a long time. They shared the same purpose. That was the only purpose. Build a winner. And then when you win some more. And if you have to work on it again, well, build it back up again and win. That's all it was all about. That was the only objective, because everything else would fall in place, including 3 million fans coming through the turnstiles every summer. See, that alignment was the way it's supposed to be with any team that we love. But it doesn't always happen, doesn't always take shapes. And then sometimes it's there and then it falls apart. And that's almost even worse, because wait a minute, it was so good. Listen, I don't want to dwell on this too much. Bill DeWitt fired Jocketty after the 2007 season because of a protracted power struggle between Walt and Jeff Luhnow, who had been brought in by DeWitt to kind of modernize Cardinals baseball operation. And as great as Jocketty was, there were some things, because Bill DeWitt understood that analytics, and there were a lot of new technology and a lot of new things coming in, and he wanted the Cardinals to be on the cutting edge. I don't blame him for that, because Luhnow actually did a really good job here. But it was a personality clash. It had nothing to do with Walt as a baseball man. And the Luhnow and Jocketty infighting got so bad, it just kind of split the organization apart, and Walt wouldn't back off. And by the way, I'm not saying he should have backed off. Walt Jocketty is a very proud man. He had had an immense amount of success for the Cardinals. So, he felt like he was not getting the respect. And he just got angry and angrier. And so Bill had to make a choice, and we know what happened. Walt Jocketty lost out. I don't hate Bill DeWitt for doing that. I understood what his purpose was. And Luhnow was really good at what he did as well. But I don't blame Walt for how he felt either. And by the way, and I think I told you this the other day, but just ride with me today. DeWitt and Jocketty patched up their relationship a long time ago. They're on good terms. They were on good terms. They really were. And Walt confirmed that to me. So I understand why the Jocketty decision was made. You don't have to like it. You can disagree with me. It's all good, man. So eventually, and it took a long time. And in fact, that's why Walt was so good, because he was gone, but the stuff that was in place, and Luhnow was modernizing things and giving them better, player development and all that stuff. But eventually, after Jocketty lost out, the Cardinals lost out. Luhnow left. Mozeliak did a good job of keeping the Cardinals going strong after replacing Jocketty, but Mo got stale. He got complacent, and the front office model became outdated and ineffective. And DeWitt, this used to be his baby, but he let the analytics and the research and development operation just get smaller and smaller and less effective. And I've said this so many times on the Bernie Show, it didn't have to happen. It could have been prevented. Nothing lasts forever, but it doesn't mean the great times have to end before they should end. It was like that with the greatest show on turf, Rams. that organization. I mean, they win the Super Bowl, they go back to another Super Bowl, and then all the egos started colliding. They're all fighting upstairs, and it just tore the whole building apart, and it seeped on down through the players, and all of a sudden, the greatest show on turf expired at least 3 or 4 years before it should have. That's what I'm talking about here. So when I look back on what Walt Jocketty built with La Russa and DeWitt and how their alliance and that alignment, the three of them, gave the Cardinals a huge advantage over the competition, it's just really sad to see it fall apart the way it did. It didn't have to be this way. And no one down there at Busch, not even DeWitt, and I respect DeWitt because his overall track record in St. Louis with the Cardinals is fantastic. But if you're down on him, I get it. I'm down on him too. So not even DeWitt, who had the power to do whatever he wanted to do, didn't do anything to fix it and restore it. They just kind of let it slide. And it angers me still. And I'm telling you, I'm probably being ridiculous, but the death of Walt Jocketty just angers me even more because it reminds me of what they had and what they didn't keep in place and how they let it fritter away. In sports, man, when you have it, you got to protect it. You got to keep it up. You can't just assume it's always going to be great. And do you remember earlier in the video when I explained how bad the Cardinals were before DeWitt, Jocketty, and La Russa formed their alignment? I did that for a reason too, because unfortunately the Cardinals are back there again, the way they were from 1988 through 1995 when they ranked 20th in baseball in winning percentage and didn't go to the playoffs. The Cardinals are headed that way again. They're already in that way again. It's just a question of how far before they hit absolute bottom, right? If you look at it, since the start of the 2023 season, and I know that it's not the same length of time as it was back then, but since the start of 2023 season, the St. Louis Cardinals have a .470 winning percentage regular season going into Tuesday night's game at Cincinnati. Remember I told you how they ranked 20th in winning percentage from 88 through 95? Since the start of 2023, the Cardinals ranked 22nd in winning percentage. 22nd in winning percentage among the 30 teams. So before Jocketty took over, the Cardinals were 20th out of 28. So they were 8 spots above the bottom. Well, since 2023, they're 22nd out of 30 teams. They're 8 spots from the bottom. It's like history has repeated itself, right? The Cardinals right now, since 2023, they're above only the Pirates, the Marlins, the Royals, the Nationals, the Angels, the A's, the Rockies, and the White Sox. Whew, do you remember when the Cardinals used to battle it out with the Dodgers and, the Red Sox, and Cardinals are in these big showdowns with the Giants, all the great teams with Bruce Bochy, and just the Cardinals were the best in the National League, but they had everybody trying to chase them down, and they're fighting people off. And October was huge every year, just about every year. So here they are again. They're back in that place where they're only eight teams from the bottom in winning percentage over the last 2+ years, just as they were Jocketty before he took over with DeWitt. From 88 through 95, when they were 8 spots above the bottom. Here we go, back to where it all started, and not in a good way. The Cardinals have also missed making the playoffs in 5 of the previous 8 full seasons, didn't count 2020. So the Cardinals have been out of the playoffs more than they've been in the playoffs. They're in a transition. They're investing a lot of time and a lot of patience, and I hope and they're investing hope in a lot of young hitters that continue to struggle. Chaim Bloom takes over in place of Mozeliak after the season, and I'm enthusiastic about the change, but I can't sit here. I don't know exactly what the plan will be in kind of a global sense. So yeah, we know what he's doing. He's already working on rebuilding the player development system and the minor league system, and that's long overdue. But DeWitt was too late to get to it, but at least he hired him to fix this thing down in the minor league level, because the player development thing has slacked off so bad that it affects your big league club. Because Bill DeWitt, I mean, I hate to break it to you again, and I don't want to get into money, but he's never going to spend like $400 million on a free agent. You know why? Because he never has. And I'm not saying that's right, but it's like, why do we expect him to do something he's never done? We'll see. Maybe he'll surprise us. I doubt it. So I really don't know what to expect. I don't know what the plan will be. I welcome the change because the Cardinals need the change. They can't go on like this. So I'm going to be rooting hard for Chaim Bloom, and I think many of you will too. First time he does something you don't like, then you want him fired. Well, at least a little small percentage of you. Anyway, are the Cardinals headed for a rebuild, or is DeWitt going to start spending more money? Is he going to get it back to where it was? Or what about this rebuild? If this year's ends in a disaster and they sort of have to start over, well, what kind of rebuild if they go that way? Well, it would save Bill DeWitt more money, and the fan base is disillusioned. It is clearly disillusioned. You are disillusioned. The Cardinals were 7th in average tickets sold to home games in 2024, and they have slipped to 14th so far this year. Average tickets sold per home game. 7th, well, they went from 3rd, 4th to 7th, now 14th. Going the wrong way, just like the winning percentage, going the wrong way. It's startling still I understand why it happened, but it's startling to see the erosion of a fan base that's just burned out by the DeWitt-Mozeliak partnership. As much as we all loved the DeWitt Jocketty La Russa partnership, this is not even of the same world. You know, Mo's gone through 3 managers. The Cardinals had one of the all-time great managers in a tower of strength. And now, you know, Mo, in my opinion, who just wants absolute authority, he hires managers that didn't have, obviously, Tony La Russa's status. And by the way, who does really? Bruce Bochy, yeah. Terry Francona, yeah. But you get my point. Yeah, it's been really rough. And, you know, and Saturday, it's too soon. Let me go back in a minute. It's too soon to know whether Bloom can fire up the fan base. I have my doubts because he comes from the Tampa Bay model and he's a big fan of the Cleveland model. And by the way, those models are great. Those teams win a lot. They outpunch their weight class in terms of payroll. And I'm hoping that DeWitt's like, listen, man, you did this, and I got trust in you. Let's expand this payroll. That's what he did for Jocketty way back when. I hope he does it the same thing for Chaim Bloom, but I don't know what to expect. And Bloom's not going to be making decisions independent of Bill DeWitt. That's never going to happen. Saturday, the Cardinals barely outdrew the Battlehawks when both teams had a home game Saturday. The Kansas City Chiefs dominate the Cardinals in the St. Louis TV market ratings. Now, I realize it's a difference between over-the-air TV and cable TV or satellite TV or streaming. I get that. But still, a lot of people here, whether people want to deny it or not, there's a lot of Chiefs fans in the St. Louis market. And you can deny it. Just look at the damn TV numbers, okay? I'm sorry I even brought that up. Cardinals baseball, this bothers me too. It's kind of been reduced to the TV guys, heaping praise on the poor underdog little Redbirds for playing so many close games. And boy, they're losing a lot, but they hang in there. Look at all the games they lose by 3 runs or less. With all due respect to those dudes, man, they're getting paid to do a job, and they pretty much have to do it a certain way. And I know that. But are we supposed to be thrilled? Are we supposed to sit there and say, "Oh yeah, that's true"? They compete and they lose close games. They lose games by a run or 2 or 3. Yeah. Is that what I mean? Does anyone feel that way outside of the paid broadcasters and on the TV side? Are we as fans supposed to be thrilled because the Cardinals try hard? Little league teams are supposed to try hard. This is Major League Baseball team. And here's the thing, and I'm taking the TV guys out of this because it's not really on them. Because, like I said, they're doing their job. But does ownership management believe that fans are uplifted or comforted by, the nonstop cheerleading? Seldom is heard a discouraging word. Our Redbirds only lost this one by 2 runs. Does ownership management think that Cardinals fans are stupid? That they're children? That we're supposed to sit there and look at the Cardinals the way we judge our kids' little league team? Way to go. Good effort. You tried hard. Let's go to Ted Drews. I mean, how do the Cardinals think they're going to win fans back when fans can't even watch a game without the Cardinals, channeling their propaganda through everything? It's just really discouraging. And again, those guys are doing what they're paid to do. But the DeWitts and the other ones down at the stadium ever stop to think that when, kind of the pep squad act at the microphones, when they keep bragging about close losses, do they ever stop to think that this just reminds St. Louis Cardinals baseball fans about the way Cardinals baseball used to be and the way it should be? We're now going to have we're going to have a pep rally down at the ballpark because the Cardinals, they had a rough road trip. But most of those games, they lost by a couple of runs. Let's have a celebration. I'm being facetious, but this has been just bothering me now for a while, okay? You're not going to fool the fans by having your broadcasters on the TV side tell you it's not that bad. It's this team is inspirational. No, stop it. But that's directed to the DeWitts. You're not winning any fans back with this. You're probably turning more off. See, and I'm about to finish here, and I've done a little freelancing along the way, so it's a probably longer video than I wanted to do, but this is really very meaningful topic to me, and I hope for you as well. The standards for this franchise have fallen to unrecognizable depths, and it's just so pathetic, and it's so sad. The Cardinals have gone from the top, and as I pointed out, they've been descending closer and closer to the bottom, and it didn't have to be this way. It did not have to happen, but it did happen, and why did it happen? Because the caretakers of this hallowed franchise neglected to protect something so precious, so ingrained in the St. Louis culture, and even in the Midwest where Cardinals fans are everywhere. You got to take great care of that. You don't take that for granted. It's precious, it's rare, it's unique. You can't let it fall apart. But they did. And that's really, really hard to take. And that's why, listen, the passing of Walt Jocketty is a separate event, a tragic event that has nothing to do with the Cardinals not playing good baseball. Like I said earlier, my goodness, I haven't lost my mind, okay? I'm just saying, I've had a few days to think about Walt Jocketty and thinking about those great days. And it just makes me think about how much I miss those watching and writing and talking about those teams. I miss the spring trainings. I miss the summers, the seasons. I miss the October wins and people bundled up a little bit, just with jackets at October baseball, Cardinals at Busch Stadium. I just miss the days where Walt Jocketty was the leader, working close with TLR, doing everything, pushing to make the team better. Just keep building winners. Got to win. What's it going to take? It's just a whole new culture. It was a whole different culture and a whole new attitude. And now the culture is like, well, we think we can compete. It's just hard to take, man. It's just hard to accept. When Jocketty and LaRussa were doing their thing and DeWitt was right behind him there, that was back when Cardinals baseball was really something special. And it just really bothers me deeply that those days are gone. And I don't know how soon they can bring those days back. and there's going to be a lot of pressure on Chaim Bloom. And so everyone's going to root for Chaim Bloom because this is the first guy that's really, since Walt Jocketty. Chaim Bloom will be the first guy since Walt Jocketty that had to pull the Cardinals out of the muck that they had slipped into, right? So give Chaim some slack, man. Let him do his thing. Even if at first you don't like necessarily the direction. But there was a time where someone had to pull the Cardinals out of the muck. And I'm talking about a baseball man, and that was Walt Jocketty. And now Chaim Bloom's going to have to do it. But can he do it? I wish I could say, yes, he'll do it. I just don't know. Because Bill DeWitt will have a lot to say about how they proceed. All right, I'm gonna shut it down now. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you all very much. I hope you understand my sentiment. And thanks to DraftKings for presenting the Bernie Show here on my wonderful home, sportshubstl.com. Thank you.